So let me start by recognizing the President of the Republic of Ghana, who was here a few minutes ago, John Dramani Mahama. Permit me also to recognize the traditional rulers who are here, the officials of Aaag who have organized this conference and invited me to share my thoughts with you. I can guarantee you that you will receive my fairly well-considered paper, but which paper I will not read. I will simply speak to the subject. I've been asked to look at Africa at crossroads and also to project to the future, to examine what Africa must do as it stands now. There is a sense in which many times when we talk about Africa, we have the tendency to overgeneralize. We have the tendency to speak of Africa as if she were one homogeneous country. You and me know that Africa is as diverse can be. We also recognize that the continent of Africa, contrary to what we are constantly reminded, continues to labor under colonial strictures because of neocolonial strings. And those of us who many attempt to persuade not to look at colonialism and neocolonialism refuse to do so. Because if you visit Angola, and Angola is represented here, they will remind you that there is a sense in which Portuguese strings still determine how they run their economics and how they run their institutions. If you visit Cameroon, it cannot be gainsaid that the French strings still run their activities, and it may even be said that their presence is overbearing. If you visit Kenya or Zambia or any of the former British colonies, that is the reality. The reality is that if you visit Congo-Kinshasa, Brussels still has a presence. And in any event, even some of your standardizations still gravitate towards those colonial entities. And that is a reality that we must never run away from. One may give the example, as was given here, between Portugal and Brazil, but that is a different story. One may give the example of Singapore and the so-called United Kingdom. That is a different story. African countries still belong to the Commonwealth of independent nations, and you have standards that are derived from that association. Former French colonies still belong to La Francophonie, and there is a sense in which that association is still alive and well. But that notwithstanding, it cannot be denied that we in the continent of Africa are also co-authors of our difficulties, and that the time has come that we must think beyond lamentation. When many years ago we took the view that we would found the Organization of African Unity, the early clarion call was that we would gain economic independence. Many years later, there is a sense in which that is not true. When the regional economic organizations were being founded, whether it was SADC in Southern Africa, or ECOWAS in West Africa, or East African Community in the eastern part of Africa, or in Central Africa, the understanding was that our economies would be run differently. Several years down the line, the report is that we are not running them as well as we should. Only the other day, I was listening to my head of state in Kenya telling the Republic that the Kenyan economy is now the 6th largest at a GDP of 136 billion. And then I looked at the annual gross turnover of a supermarket called Walmart in the United States. Its gross turnover last year is bigger than all the economies of East African countries combined. So even when we talk about our economies, we must be very shy. Shy because we are talking about little economies which continue to punch below their weight. And we are here talking to you, accountants general. When you perform your task, you must be in a position to have determined what is it that ails Africa. What is it that makes a continent that is so rich to underperform in such a manner? These are the practical questions that I believe we are here to address our minds to. As I speak to you now, nearly 19 African countries are under distress, which means that they are under the beck and call of the World Bank and the IMF, the Bretton Woods institutions. In positions where you serve, those of you who are slightly older will remember the IMF and our structural adjustment systems in the 1980s. They came, they told you, devalue. They came, they told you, borrow more. They came, they told you, privatize. They came, and they behaved as if one size fits all. The prescription that they gave in Zambia is the very same that they gave in Kenya. It is the very same that they gave in Nigeria and in Ghana. And you and me who are trained in their universities consume them lock, stock, and barrel. And we still have a story to tell. When we visit our countries, our health facilities don't perform as they should. Our schools don't perform as well as they should. Our currencies don't perform as they should. I'm quite certain the 22 countries which are present here, almost all of you who are outside of Ghana are carrying dollars in your pockets. Because the dollar is the only currency that will be understood and accepted even here in Ghana. None of you dare brought the maloti from Lesotho. None of you dare brought the rand from South Africa. None of you dare brought the kwanza from Angola. We are all prisoners of currencies which we do not control, and yet on a daily basis we say that our economies are doing well. The question is, what have we done and what are we not doing in a proper manner? You know, when I look at Africa, when I listen to our heads of state, when I listen to our foreign ministers, our finance ministers, when I listen to our accountants general such as yourselves, the rhetoric is right. You say the right things. You appear to do the right things. You appear to have the right legislation. You appear to have the right technology, IFMIS. You appear to use the same language, digitization. But why is it that Coca-Cola's advertisement budget is larger than the GDP of Lesotho? Why? These are the painful questions that we must ask ourselves, because it is not a shortage of legislation. It is not a shortage of policy framework. There must be something that we are doing that is not leading us into the right direction. And the question is, therefore, knowing as we do that we are at crossroads, what is it, therefore, that we must do in order to liberate ourselves from the sorrow and pain that we continue to labor under over the years? You know, when you look at your mother continent and you look at her performance, you look at the declaration that she has made, you look at the diagnosis that she has made about our economy, you agree that she knows what is ailing her. Many of you know, in 1980, under the Lagos Plan of Action, African heads of states and governments sat and said that one of the things that is affecting Africa is that we are not trading as much as we should. Europe trades within ourselves at anything between 60 and 70%. America, North America, at anything between 70 and 75%. Asia at between 60 and 65%. Latin America at between 45 and 55%. Africa at the very best, between 15 and 20%. We therefore took the view that we should move towards integration. We took the view that we should have common markets. We took the view that we should remove tariff and non-tariff barriers. Nothing happened after 1980. We sat again in Abuja in 1991, repeated the same thing, and nothing happened from 1991. We met again in Addis Ababa in 2013 and came with the grandest of them all, Africa Agenda 2063, founded on 7 pillars. If you read Africa Agenda 2063 and read the promises that we have given ourselves, then for those of you who will survive until that time, you will not need to go to heaven. Heaven will be here. But the question is, on the evidence that is available now, are we moving in that direction? No, we are not. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is headquartered here in Accra, Ghana. Since the year 2018, we have had Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But the question is, which goods are we trading amongst ourselves? Are we trading sugar from Mauritius in the continent of Africa? Are we trading tea from Nairobi, Kenya, here in Ghana? Is cocoa from Ghana going to Botswana or South Africa, or is going to Brussels in Belgium and Bern in Switzerland? The shoes that you are so comfortably wearing, where are they made? The tags that you are wearing around your neck, I suspect they are from China. This is the position in which we find ourselves. So that if Africa is to realize the potential, Africa must rethink the manner in which it does things. Today, we say that Africa can only rise on the basis of the regional economic communities. Let us examine each one of them one by one. Let us ask ourselves, how integrated is South Africa's economy with that of the other neighbors in that part of the world? How is the rand treated in Zimbabwe? How is the rand treated in Mozambique, in Angola, in Lusaka, Zambia, in Malawi? And vice versa, how is the kwacha treated? How is the metikais treated? How is the pula treated? How is the maloti treated? How is the kwanza treated? How is the pound of Namibia treated? You don't accept them. You go to Zimbabwe, they attempt to de-dollarize the economy dollarizes itself. What is it that is happening that we have lost trust in our systems? Those of you who are in Zimbabwe will remember there was a time you even pegged your currency on gold, and the Zimbabweans were not impressed. They were much more impressed and gravitated once again towards the dollar of the United States of America. I'm now saying that there is a crisis of self-belief in we Africans. Until the day that we exorcise the ghost of low self-esteem, you are going nowhere. And those of you who are present here who are accountants, when you go out and you are reading your accounting standards, you are so gleefully saying international accounting standards. Who said they were international? Who said? Where are they crafted? When you look at these rules that you so gleefully talk about, where are they created? The Asians no longer do that. The Chinese no longer do that. The Indonesians no longer do that. But you and me in the continent of Africa, laboring under inferiority complex, still gleefully gravitate towards our colonizers. If we want to save the continent of Africa, then all professionals must liberate themselves from the chains of low self-esteem. It can be done. I am told that there is a gentleman here from Mauritius. Mauritius is a little country, smaller than Greater Lagos. Her only claim to fame a few years ago was that she produced sugar. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect he will not. They closed some of their sugar factories. They chose value addition. It became an international financial center. It is now becoming a mecca for people financially. Mauritius did it in the continent of Africa. It can be done. It can be done. If you look at the Mauritian banks such as SMB, they are now having their footprints in the continent of Africa. It can be done. Nigeria, whose GDP is no more than 347 billion United States dollars, is now beginning to rise and fall again. But her banks are now present in the continent of Africa. UBA, Tony Elumelu will be talking to you tomorrow. I hope he'll speak to it. Zenith Bank. In the banking sector, Africa is beginning to rise. Stanbic from South Africa. MTN in the mobile telephony space. Equity of Kenya. Safaricom of Kenya. It can be done. In other words, what we are saying is that we may be at a crossroad, but there is a sense in which we are beginning to wake up. The very fact that 22 of you are assembled here, the very fact that 22 of you have been coordinating, the very fact that you are recognizing that we must work as one is in itself a statement that we are beginning to move in the right direction. But the question is, are we merely meeting at annual jamborees? Is your interaction intimate? After this conference, the Accountant General of Zambia, will you invite your counterpart from Cameroon? Will you compare notes? Will there be an exchange program? Will you harmonize your systems? Will you begin to make a point of reference that is African, so that you don't look to London? Those of you who are from Angola, will you have people benchmarking in Lesotho? The euphemism that you are so gleefully using, where is it operated from? Who sold it to you? Who repairs it when it is down? The artificial intelligence that we are talking about now, where is it crafted? When your data is taken out, who controls your data? Who is in charge? Is it you? Or somebody sitting in London? Or somebody sitting in Washington? When you are doing your books, do you have Big Brother, IMF, and World Bank, and the European Union, and all these countries that are in the business of summoning and controlling Africa? Will they still be there? Will you truly be independent? Will Africa speak with one voice? In East African community, will we still have systems that don't function? I remember in East Africa, we had something called fast tracking of the political federation of East Africa. We were only then 3 countries. Today they are 8. According to fast tracking, we ought to have had one currency in the year 2009. If I count right, 2009 is past. It was the case that the first president of East Africa ought to have been sworn in the month of January, the year 2010. As I speak to you, we still have the following currencies: Kenya with its own shilling, Uganda with its own shilling, of course, Mafaranga in Rwanda, francs in Burundi, francs in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the pound in Southern Sudan, and Ethiopia, of course, or rather Somalia also has its own currency. And yet we are talking about common market. We even said that we would read our budgets on the same day. And we did for some time. We had our ministers for finance holding boxes, which they normally do, and pretended to be reading from the same script. Look at our economies now. Look at free movement of people. Look at our stock exchanges. What is happening to them? That is East Africa for you. In ECOWAS, the story is the same. The Sahelian countries have now run away. Burkina Faso is no longer a member of ECOWAS. Niger is no longer a member of ECOWAS. Mali is no longer a member of ECOWAS. When they tried to introduce the ECO, it did not succeed. The question is, how can Africa realize our potential when we make 10 steps forward and make 15 backwards? This is the question. And the question is, once you have had a meeting such as this, where will your deliberations go? Will our good friend John Dramani Mahama receive the full-blooded deliberations? Will you visit him after this and tell him what your resolutions are? Or he simply came to open the conference and then you have no value for him? Is that the case? These are the painful questions that you must answer once you have asked. I remain optimistic. I remain optimistic because of young Africans who are now beginning to think differently and make demands of their politicians. It started in earnest in Kenya in the year 2024 when young Kenyans were in the streets because of the finance bill. It sent a message to the world that young Africans were no longer just concerned with mundane issues, that they were going to the root of the matter. After that, we have seen young Africans rise. They rose in La Côte d'Ivoire. They rose in Cameroon. They rose recently in Tanzania. They rose in Madagascar and we do not know where their president is. One day we will know. But they were asking critical questions about where Africa is going. So you who are accountants general, who are charged with the task, and I think President Mahama summarized it very well, that going forward we must have people in your arena of operation who believe in technology. We must have people who believe in coordination. We must have people who believe in accountability and people who believe in credibility. And I must commend you. If you listen to the young man, he said something that was so very deep, that you are the individuals who sign checks which are bigger than your salary, so that even if you work for 908 years, as long as Methuselah lived, you never earn. But yet you sign those checks because you are trustees for your country. So you deserve to be commended, and I commend you. But let us now look to the future. What does the future hold for the continent of Africa? What does the future demand of the continent of Africa? Our population, depending on who you are talking to, is either 1.4 billion or 1.5 billion. We'll know the exact figure when we have exact numbers of the population of Nigeria and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But we are 1-point-something billion, the youngest population on earth. The average age, give or take, 19 years. If our economies don't grow, where will they be? With the emergence of artificial intelligence, jobs that used to be undertaken by 20 people will be undertaken by one robot. Where will they go? Even your jobs, I fear for them. In the next 5 years, you may have accountant generals who are robots, because with the right kind of data, they will be able to do the work that you are doing. Not that we are going to eliminate the human element, but we are going to find ourselves in that space. What will we do? What are we doing about that young population that is asking for opportunities? What are we going to do in a more integrated world? As I speak now, the G20 are meeting in South Africa. How many African countries are represented? What weight does South Africa have? Does it have an economy that can be a counterweight to India and China and Indonesia? How are we going to operate in that sphere? As I speak to you now, many parts of Africa, as I have already indicated, are suffering under debt stress. There is what one may describe as the scramble for Africa, the scramble for African resources. They are here as they were in the 1800s. If you go to Somalia, and my good friend from Somalia is here, the Turks are there, the Chinese are there. If you go to Zambia, the Chinese are there, the Indians are there. If you go to Ghana, the Lebanese are there, the Chinese are there. And let me tell you, Africa is a hunting ground. Once the animal has been caught, it will be slaughtered elsewhere. And until the day that the continent is alive to that reality, Africa and Africans shall remain hewers of wood and drawers of water for other civilizations. The time now is for you and me to realize that, and to know that we have a duty for this generation and generations yet to be born to think differently, to do things differently, to be masters of our technology, to be masters of our training, to train our accountants in a manner that is unique to our circumstances, to do things differently, to integrate our economies It is not lost on me that the entire northern part of Africa is not here. Egypt is not here. Libya is not here. Tunisia is not here. Algeria is not here. Morocco is not here. In other words, in the minds of the Maghreb, when they are talking about Africa, they are thinking about sub-Saharan Africa. You must not be too diplomatic when you are dealing with these things. You must speak the truth because it shall set you free. Therefore, recognize that you are on your own. And if you are on your own, you do that which is right in order to liberate yourselves. It has been done before. Our duty is to ensure that we now move in the right direction. So, good accountants general, good Africans, my message to you is the choice is ours. We are at crossroads. We can choose the path of dependence, the path of subservience, the path of being dominated, or we can choose the path of doing that which is good and right, in the knowledge that in the early days we'll suffer, but it is out of the womb of suffering that we will gain benefit. There are countries that are doing well. They may be small, but I want to ask you, what is it that is happening in Rwanda that cannot be replicated? The Rwandese are here. They are doing well in their small way. Can we not replicate? The Botswana are here. What is it that is happening in Botswana that cannot be replicated? Namibians are here. There is something that they are doing that we can replicate. The South Africans are here. You are tottering. Sometimes you worry us. But you are too big to be allowed to fall. We want you to put your act together. Nigeria, you are here. The day you wake up properly, you are not waking up properly. The day you wake up properly, that is the day Africa will be removed from slumber. And it gladdens my heart that the head of this organization is a Nigerian. Nigeria has a GDP of slightly below 400 billion United States dollars. Never say it. Begin saying it when your GDP is 2 trillion United States dollars. It cannot be right that little Norway, producing the same oil, the same gas, has a sovereign fund of 2.2 trillion United States dollars. I doubt whether Nigeria has any, and if she does, is not anything worth writing home about. This is a forum at which you must not be diplomatic. It is a forum at which you must speak the truth, so that when you go back home, you feel pain. Mine was to bring pain to you. In the knowledge that when you feel pain, you'll go out into your countries, go out. In the knowledge that there is work to be done. Go out in the knowledge that beyond good legislation, beyond good policies, beyond good technology, we must have good human beings. And those human beings must be human beings who think about Africa. For what is Lesotho as a small kingdom outside of the greater Africa? But yet Lesotho can make Africa great again, because in order to have the ocean, you need the droplets. In order to have the forest, you need the trees. You are the trees. 22 of you gathered here. The next time you call me, don't call me until you are 50. Please. And 50 you will be. God bless.